Hello and welcome to the Over It podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg, joined today by the amazing Kristan Kershaw. And today's topic is very pertinent for the beginning of the year. It is the beginning is shit. And not only am I passionate about this topic because I wrote a book with this same title, but it's the 1st of January, people. How many of us are starting the year with really, really high hopes, but may have a literal hangover or a sugar hangover for all the things we've done on the 31st of January that we promised, 31st of December that we promised ourselves we would never, ever do again, and are now feeling the effects of that. So this is bound to be a good one.
Absolutely. I can't wait for it. So think of all those New Year's resolutions or goals of big things or little things you want to get done in the year. Let's dig into that, shall we?
Let's dig in. So I'll just start with you, Kristan, because you were like, I want to do an episode with this as a title. I know it was inspired by my book, and I was like, well, let's do it for January. But where do you want me to start? Give me a focus point.
Well, I would love to hear the story or shared with everyone about the title of the book and the challenges that you've had with that, because it's if I recall correctly, something to do with searches and listing and all sorts of stuff to do with the title. I think everyone would love to hear about that. And then maybe after that, we can talk a bit more around like the general ethos of the beginning is shit. And, you know, sometimes things can be really hard when we get started on a task or whatever. And the beginning may not be all sunshine and lollipops of where you want it to be, but I think there's some pretty cool stuff. Like I myself, I'm working towards doing a new physical activity in 2023, but I've been chipping away and planning towards this for months. And it's not suddenly a New Year's resolution. It's literally, I can schedule it in from January next year or this year because I'm changing my calendar and things around. So that's just happens to be when I can do that, rather than it being, right, I'm going to be fitter and stronger. I'm gradually working up to it. But there's a fun little thing around that, and me exhausting myself in the middle of December or just before Christmas, which I think everyone might find a bit funny. But first, tell me about this book.
I love this so much. I know you know the story because you were there, and that's why you were like, you need to share this with people. So I started writing this book in 2018. And it's basically my memoir. So if you haven't read it yet and you want to get the first 2 chapters, head over to my website, click on book. It won't sign you up for my list because I believe in consent in marketing, and we have an episode on that. So you can listen to that. But basically, the book starts when I was 4 years old and I was put on the first diet by my parents. And when I sat down to write this in 2018, I had no idea how to write a book. Like I am an avid reader. I read at least 1 book a week, often 2 to 4, which people are like, how do you find time? We always find time for the things we love, people. So I was like, I've got no idea how to write a book. It's so funny when we have something that we're passionate about and then try to turn it into a business, it can kind of suck some of the joy out of it. So anywho, I hired a book writing coach, which I think was a great move because, I had no idea what to do. And one of her first pieces of advice for me was looking at memoirs, so like reading other memoirs to see what kind of style I would like to write. Because there's the memoir / self-help hybrid, which I'm not particularly fond of personally, because I'm like, well, which is it? Am I reading about your life story? Am I reading about like your tips? So immediately I was like, not that. But then it was kind of like, is it the reader is coming along with you as you're going through the journey? So you're writing it as if you're 4 at the beginning and then 5 and then as I got older, or is it written as adult you now reflecting on? Because that language and the way that you structure how you will write your book is going to be very different. And from reading a number of memoirs as a avid reader, I liked the ones where I was taken on the journey. So like it was the person going through the experience, which sounded great, but was actually really challenging to write because you couldn't say, little did I know, or things were going to get better. You had to write it as 4-year-old you, as much as you can remember, because I'm in my 30s now, from the perspective of that time, which opened up a lot of emotional wounding for me, because it was like, oh my God, like literally reliving this and seeing the scenarios as I remembered them, and writing from that experience, not from what happened later. So that part was really challenging. And the second piece of advice that the book coach gave me that was really valuable was, don't read it back. She said, so many people will write and then edit and then re-edit and then over-edit and then edit and never actually get into the meat. So she was like, write the entire thing, then go back and edit. So I started writing in 2018. I wrote about 75% of it. I had a lot of personal circumstances happen. My husband got made redundant for the 4th time. I was suddenly the primary income earner. That's a whole story, which I'm happy to go into. If there's curiosity, feel free to ask me. But I was like, a book which you make maybe $1 or $2 from a copy, versus like I need to provide for the family. The book project got postponed, plus the fact that I also got fired the year before in 2017. And that's the part of the book that I was up to writing about. And that I still was quite heavy emotionally for me. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like at the time, it was going to be a whole chapter. I ended up pausing because, as I said, circumstances. When I picked it back up in 2021, it ends up being a sentence. If you read the book, it's like, I was let go from my job. So this is the value of like hindsight and time, people. Like if I wrote this book again now, another couple of years later, it would be different because it's a memoir and we're evolving. So anyway, I paused the book in 2018. I picked it back up in 2021 and literally just started writing from where I left it off. So you'll be able to see, if you read the book back, or if you read the book, the point of the transition. And then you and I were together. We went to a retreat in Queensland. It was supposed to be in Bali, but 2020 happened. So in 2021, we went to this retreat, and I can't remember what the theme of it was, but I was recovering from surgery. I was like, I'm not available for whatever it is that this is. I'm going to finish my book. And you guys were like, go for it.
It was so just, I don't know, just smoothly kind of, I don't know that there was even a theme. It was so many different, I was doing revamp and content for my website. Another member that was there was writing a course that she was doing. So we all had, it was really interesting because the dynamic worked so well for us to then bounce bits off and just sit down and do stuff.
It was so good. So I remember you guys two cheering me on and saying, how many words have you written today? And I was like, 5,000, no, 7,000. I remember the shoulder massages and the cups of tea and like just stay at the computer. And it was fabulous. So I picked it up, and then how long were we in retreat for? 4 or 5 days? I can't remember.
Yeah, I think like 4.
So 3 days I must have spent writing. And on the 4th day, I was like, okay, finished. I'll start reading it back from the get-go. And I had no title in mind. The working title was actually My Body, My Prison, because that's how I'd felt about my life. And I was voice noting another friend who wasn't on retreat with us, but who was there, and she was asking me about the book. And I was like, oh, so I started reading it back. And she's like, what do you think? I'm like, well, the beginning is shit. Because my writing got so much better as the process went through. And then the irony of that, because she was like, well, there's your title right there. And then I was like, oh, that's brilliant. So I called it that. But the irony is when you write a book and you do have a giveaway, it's usually your first 1 or 2 chapters. So I'm like, I'm not even giving away the goods. It doesn't get good. From my point of view, like we're all our own harshest critic till, quite a way in. But yeah, that's where the title came from.
And then do I remember correctly that you had some woes? Because I know my colleague Morley, for those that are watching this on a video, I have a book over my shoulder, and searching for his book is really challenging because it's CU-RE instead of cure, because it relates to copper. I seem to recall you had some search fun with yours as well because of the title, did you not?
Yes. So I have the asterisks in shit. I'm not opposed. If you go to my website, you'll see all the words. I don't shy away from it, but I realize if it's going to be picked up to, be printed or something, they're not going to, I don't want people to have to get a sticker to put over it or whatever. So it's got the asterisks instead of the I. So when you search for that, if you put the beginning of shit and spell it correctly with an I, you cannot find it. And then depending on your keyboard, some forms of asterisk, like it needs to be exactly right. So basically, I've said to people, if you're going to search it up, you need to search for Suzanne Kohlberg. Suzanne's pretty traditional, but Kohlberg, no one ever spells that right off the first go. It's not a traditional or common spelling of that name. So yeah, sometimes people are like, I can't find your book. And I'm like, what do you mean you can't find my book? It's on Amazon, Book Depository, Barnes and Noble, Booktopia. But, you know, you've got to get Suzanne Kohlberg right. I suppose, you know, one day maybe if I'm big famous like Glennon Doyle or Brene Brown, I'm sure if you got their name wrong, it'd still find them because, you know, they're big enough. But when you're new and starting out, yeah, if you're not exactly right, it's lost to the ether.
And it's so funny because I've had trouble. I've been trying to help distribute said book. It's written in the US. It's distributed well through those networks. But I've been encouraging people to go and find Molly's Cure Your Fatigue book through Audible and getting it into libraries and stuff like that. When I first put Cure with the CU-RE and stuff, it wasn't coming up either. And it's all around getting that exactly right. And then even in the author field of the searches, some of these things, who knew when you were writing a book that there would be finicky little things like this? It didn't get entered at the back end quite correctly. So even if you search for Morley Robbins, which is not a super hard name, but it is a bit different, it wouldn't come up. And I'm like, what's going on? And so, yeah, who knew, right? If you're writing a book, try and keep this title fairly simple if you can, and people will need to learn how to spell your name.
And the other thing too on that is we're based in Australia, Kristan and I, but both of us work with global audiences. So if I send the Amazon link, Amazon apparently has recently fixed this, but this was a year ago when I published, it would open amazon.com.au because I'm from Australia. But overseas people were trying to buy it and like, well, I don't want to spend $30 on shipping because they're trying to ship it from, I'm like, well, why don't you go to your own Amazon, like .com or .ca? But it didn't automatically go to that. So now apparently it's fixed, but I haven't looked at it. But for anyone listening, if you are writing or have written a book, Book Linker, like if you Google Book Linker, Linker as it sounds, it's a free service. You put the link to your book in your Amazon, like for here it's .au. And then when I share that link, whoever opens it, if they're in Canada, if they're in America, if they're wherever they are, it will give them a link to their local Amazon. So if they have their Prime, they can just get the free shipping. So that is a fabulous, you might want to get that for Morley, Book Linker. It's an absolutely fabulous service because, and it's free. And then they get the link to their Amazon. And the other thing you can do, depending on how savvy you are, and it's for everybody, because when you publish a book, you get like $1 or $2. You don't get a whole lot. The royalties aren't that sexy. If you sign up to Amazon affiliates, so that's another free thing you can, put your affiliate link in the Book Linker. So whenever people buy it, you get your $1 or $2 author thing, but you also get the affiliate 20 cents or whatever it is. And I know we all laugh about it, but this kind of thing adds up and somebody's going to get it. It might as well be you, the person who is promoting it. And for anybody who's listening, if you're in business, if you're promoting other people's work, like if you're going to share my book and you want to put it in your Book Linker with your affiliate Amazon link, go for it. Because then you get like 20 cents or something. Like I'm all for, one of my passions, maybe we'll end up with an episode on this, is affiliate income. But like genuine, as in you love and cherish and are supportive of this person, as opposed to like, I know affiliates make a lot of people shudder, but like Tiger Woods selling Nescafe, he's like a golfer. What's it got to do with coffee? Yeah, we'll go and run and buy that. But if our friend says, hey, go buy Suzanne's book, she's amazing. And then, oh, by the way, I get 20 cents for recommending it. Oh my gosh, you should be ashamed. Like, it's like, no. It's one of the things I want to change in this world, affiliating and people getting something for sharing something they love that they have valued. I think it should be encouraged, not just for the big stars and the big names who are selling something that they might not even like coffee, but they're being paid millions to be the face of it.
Yep. I've literally just added a topic to our list about affiliate income. Done with love and genuine connection.
Yes, affiliate, and that's one of the things. I will only affiliate something, and this is my personal choice, not everyone has to do it, that I've used the product or worked with a person that I have enjoyed personally, as opposed to me getting a kickback or hired. But then again, no, it wouldn't, because when I did drop all the weight, a company approached me that did like, what do you call it? Stomach holding in underwear. They wanted me to be like
Spanx or something.
Yeah, something like that. And I was like, I didn't just drop over half my body weight to be freaking uncomfortable. No. And they're like, oh, but you could just promote it and you get this thing and we'd pay you. And I was like, no. So I will only promote something that I have used and enjoyed personally. It is my personal choice. But I don't want to just be like, you're going to pay to say this is amazing, because I just think that's out of integrity.
Yep, totally. So I love that. I'm so glad you shared. Thank you for all of that and the little bonus tips too. So as we look into 2023, for those who, and don't get us wrong, there's nothing wrong with having a goal for a year. Far from it. Both of us are big on, what do we want to do this year? What do we want to do for the next 5 years? Goal setting is actually so much value, especially when you take a bit of time and you look at the options as far as, is this realistic? What can I do to action it? And taking little steps towards, we've talked heaps before about little steps towards bigger goals, but doing a big overhaul-y, I'm going to empty the pantry, I'm going to go to the gym 5 days a week, big changes we've talked previously about, they're not sustainable, they're unlikely to reap the rewards and that sort of thing. So where could we encourage people we were talking before we started about the beginning and shit from a different perspective of beginning our journey. If there is some big hairy goal that you want to reach, that doesn't mean you can't do it. When you were at your last turning point of going, right, I'm going to lose this, I'm going to release this weight, and the beginning of that 3-year process, how did that begin for you at that stage? You'd been through many roller coasters before that point. It wasn't like it was a sudden decision, but could you help someone that might be about ready to make that life change on what they could do to get started, for instance?
My recommendation would probably differ from anybody else's, but it would be to go and buy yourself some clothes that fit now, and ignore the voice in your head that's saying, but I'm going to release weight, but I'm going to do all this stuff. If you are wanting to exercise more and you're freaking uncomfortable because your bra digs into you and your pants are falling down or they're busting at the seams or whatever, like so many of us, we don't want to reward ourselves for being where we are. That is not rewarding yourself. You are entitled to be comfortable and enjoy what you're wearing at any size. And when you have bras that fit and underwear that doesn't ride up your butt or fall down, whichever, you are much more likely to go outside and exercise because you feel comfortable. You're not like, I can't wait to get home to rip out this bra because I just can't breathe in this thing. So, and then so many people will say to me, but I would lose all impetus to change. And I'm saying I'm okay. Like, first of all, you are okay. That's a whole other story for another day. But second of all, we take care of things that we love and we don't take care of things that we loathe. So starting to say to yourself that I love myself as I am, and you might not have a whole particularly big budget for this. I totally understand. There is Kmart or wherever you were listening overseas, there are, budget things. There is op shopping. There is all the op shops often have things with tags still on them. Like, it's fascinating. But like, if you're looking for an excuse not to do this, you will find one. But the very first thing I did was I spent a boatload of money on an entire new wardrobe that I then didn't wear for very long because I actually did release the weight. But the thing is, when I put on the clothing that felt comfortable, when I looked in my wardrobe and saw things that I enjoyed wearing rather than, oh my goodness, which thing can I fit and anything like that, I was much more likely to take action. So instead of cleaning out your pantry and buying a goal outfit that you're going to hang on the door, because I don't know about anyone else, but for me, all that does is reinforce each time that I'm not there yet and make me feel miserable, and compounds the fact that the beginning is shit. And then, I can't remember if I wrote about this in the book or not, but there was this one top, it was the last one I ever bought, that it was a gold top, it was like a size or two too small. And I looked at it to motivate me. It didn't. When I finally fit into it, I'd lost more weight off my boobs than my belly. So it was still tight around the middle. By the time it fit on the middle, it was so saggy in the boobs that it was just not wearable. And I was like, this is so disappointing. So you don't know where your weight is going to release from. Unfortunately, there is no way to choose. For me, I'm not particularly well endowed in the chest anyway, but whenever I start to release weight, it's always off the boobs first and the belly last, which also compounds the beginning of shit, because it's like I'm looking worse in my mind when I'm talking to myself before I look better. So my first tip would be buy something that you are comfortable to wear now within your budget. And maybe just a couple of pieces. Like, I'm not the whole capsule wardrobe thing, but like just a couple of things that you can wear. And the other thing too, when you start doing your wardrobe clean out, that we all do, because like for me, I had from size 10 through to size 26 in my wardrobe. Like, I had this shopping experience, and nothing is more depleting than when you've released some weight and go to try something on, and all you see is everything else that still doesn't fit you yet. It's immediate. So take it all out, arrange it. And I love talking arranging, because you were sending me photos of you arranging your office earlier today. But like, get buckets or whatever it is, or Ziploc bags, or I don't care, and put size 10, size 12, size 14, and put them away, out of sight, out of mind. And then as you're releasing the weight, only grab out the items from the next size down, so you don't immediately like depress yourself. Well, I shouldn't use that. I'm not use that word lightly. Make yourself feel saddened by the fact that you still have so far to go. So set yourself up for success by organizing your space to make the most of, your transformation, because this is going to be the last time, people.
And decluttering like that can be so lightening in itself, and actually can help with other things that are going on in your life too. If you've got the clothes there as a cluttered space and they're all there together, just that act of sorting can actually be really, my office, I'm moving some stuff out that doesn't need to be in here anymore. And just by shifting that around, and there's going to be in future, if you're watching this on the video or touch on our videos, you'll get to see a big change that's coming soon. It's so exciting. But even just having shifted some of the things and deciding, okay, I'm going to sell that marketplace and get rid of that, or that can go live in a new home, that can release some energy that's been stuck, that may then help you with other things that are going on in your life too, and may lighten and feel the weight lift off your shoulders in other ways. It's got nothing to do with releasing the weight or changing the diet or whatever that goal may be.
I have goosebumps from you saying that, because releasing the energy is such a huge thing, no pun intended, because I'd encourage you, as you're labeling your clothing by size and working out what you want to store, have a look at it, people. If you haven't worn it since you were 13, chances are you aren't going to wear it again. I don't say this tongue-in-cheek, because I remember this one pair of, when I was young, I grew up in a particularly low-income family, and I wanted this brand, surfy brand of clothing. Anyway, cut a long story short, I bought this pair of shorts. They never fit me. I held on to it until I was in my 30s. I think they were Roxy or something, just so I could get them on. And then I look in the mirror, I'm like, you cannot. This is just a no. Like, no. And there was other pieces of clothing that I was like, I'm only holding on to this for the self-righteousness of saying that I fit it. I would never actually wear it again. If that is the case, to let it go, to either, release it, cut it up for rags, gift it to somebody who maybe it's more age appropriate for, gift it to costume shop. I don't care, but get it out of your space. How freeing that is. Because why do we hold on to stuff? Like, it's almost like that, revenge body, like, except against the previous version of ourselves. And then the other thing too, if you do hold on to it, once again, where you drop the weight from. I remember this dress that I had made for me when Jeremy and I went out for one of our first like big dates. It was a big dinner thing, and I've always had an oddly shaped body, and I couldn't find this dress, so I actually had it made. But then when I dropped weight, it dropped from all sorts of different places. So it didn't fit, even though technically it would have. It didn't look nice. And I was like, this is so disappointing. So if there's things that you've held on to, and I don't know about anyone else, but I'm nothing if not an oversharer. Often when I'm gaining weight, I refuse to accept the fact that I'm gaining weight. So I'll keep wearing the clothing well beyond where I should have. So it's stretched in places that it should like not have stretched in. So then as I'm releasing the weight, I'm like, oh, I'm this size now. And then I go to the shop and I'm nowhere near that size. It's another thing that's kind of really depleting to your motivation as you're, decreasing in size. So if it's stretched out of shape, if it hasn't been in fashion in 20 years, if you wouldn't be caught dead in it now, it's time to go.
Totally. Absolutely. Amen to that. I did some purging this year because we've had a mold issue in our house, and I know you've had some in 2022.
Australia-wide, I think, with all the rain and everything, it's been just mold has been a whole thing.
In our area, it was suddenly in May, everything was getting mold on it. I've never seen it like that ever before. And so over time, we ended up finding it in my cupboard, like in my wardrobe. And there was it was fascinating though, some cotton t-shirts were covered in mold, and yet other synthetic fibers or synthetic blend ones next to it were fine. I'm like,
isn't that fascinating?
So it gave me the chance to go through and do a bit of a general purge and wash some things. And thankfully, nothing was too badly damaged from having had some mold on it. So I was very, very grateful. But it was amazing that it wasn't through everything. It was very specific. And I'm like, I don't put dirty clothes back in the wardrobe, so I don't think it's because it was particularly dirty or something, lots of sweat or something. It was weird. Anyway, it was so nice to be able to do that. And it's funny, when we went on holidays, for those watching the videos, you'll get to see a prop in a minute. When we went away on holidays, we had the house sitters come in, and some stuff that had been sorted from that just got shoved downstairs where my office is. And so I have a bag of clothes, talking about exercise gear, where will I ever wear this? Probably not. So what you were just saying, Suze, but a lot of it's in really good condition. And some of it I'd probably potentially still fit, but it just doesn't feel comfy. I've got particular things that I like now. So I didn't want to chuck it because I hate the waste. And if you're like me and you really hate, the energy that goes into making clothes and all of that side of things, donate it to an op shop. Donate it to, there's a thing called Upparel, Upparel, I think it is, in Australia. I'm sure there must be similar things in other countries. And you pay a $25 flat rate, and they will get a courier to pick up a box of clothes. And it's big, the $25 option. There's other options too. You shove as many clothes and shoes, and they've got defined like fabrics and things. And they will either rehome it if it can be given to charities, or they will chop up the fabric and repurpose it into other things, whether it's stuffing for things or all sorts of different stuff. And that way, if you don't like the waste of going to landfill or whatever, because there's still life in it, that's another way. So just as a little, that can clear the energy, but you're not, because part of me hates the waste of, my husband will happily go, okay, let's purge it. It can get chucked. Not that he's big on wanting stuff to go to landfill, but the energy shifting of, okay, we don't need that anymore. But even I've got him trained now. It all started with
kids'
socks.
clothes. It's funny, I don't know about anyone else, but with kids' clothes, we tend to so easily do the hand-me-downs, find somebody, kids younger than ours and stuff. Yep. So with our own clothes, if it's good quality, as I said, you can donate it to a lot of the op shops and stuff will take good quality clothes, because a lot of it will even have tags on it. But the other thing we've been doing now with ours is, because my son Casimir is going to be a fashion designer, anything old, I just give to him to practice his sewing on. So he can practice with different textures and different materials and get the feel for it there. But like, if you want to repurpose or rehome, or you can make it for rags, for like cleaning the car. There's so many things that you can redo with stuff without having to. I just love that you bring attention to that. And please give me the link, or we'll put the link in the show notes for that thing that you said, because I thought that was an awesome idea as well.
They started off with sock recycling of all things, and then it evolved into other textiles. Another one that came to mind that my local school does is they have an after school care thing, and they often do sewing, and they will ask. So even if you have, whether it's old towels or old, probably more cotton and basic polyester type poly cotton combos or whatever, they'll use it just because the kids do. They make little pillows, they make all sorts of stuff. So if you've got decent quality material or clothes that could be cut up, same sort of thing. Let kids like
donate it.
Yeah,
they can make they can, it can be repurposed. So the other thing, so you said, like, for people who are starting out, that the beginning is shit, like, some tips. One would be clothes that fit. Two would be, decluttering the space. And that also could be, so like, I don't subscribe to cleaning out your pantry because, but it's kind of like, are there things here that have sat here? Like, is there the quinoa or the freezer that I ain't ever going to cook? Like, is there somebody that I could donate that to? Is there somewhere like, So we don't have, what do you want to call it? The supplements graveyard in the back of the pantry.
Yeah. An equivalent.
So
the really out of date stuff. There's an easy one.
Energetically clearing your space. That would be another one. And part 3 would be to find a community or a support system that is not friends or family, because friends or family can become enablers inadvertently, or, oh, you've worked so hard, just one won't hurt, and kind of the slip becomes a slide, which was, I think, was our previous episode. If you haven't listened to that one yet, go and listen to that. Find yourself a community, whether you invest in it, like I've got Why Wait or Kristan has Supporting Balance. Obviously we're going to recommend our communities, like this is our show, but some sort of community, because in your mind, you're going to say, it's not happening fast enough. I've been doing this since Monday. Why am I not skinny yet? And all this evidence of all the times you've tried before and have failed, and this is just going to be like that, and why bother? And all that is going to come in. That is normal. When you have a community or a coach or a person who's not, as I said, not a friend, because friends by well-meaning can accidentally enable instead of encourage, to remind you of the powerhouse that you are. And of course, it's going to take time. Like if you're watching the video, I have pineapples on my branding for the reason a pineapple takes 18 months to grow. You've planted your seed in this beginning time, but you need to continue to water it and weed it and tend to it, not go, oh my gosh, I don't have a pineapple, it's been 2 weeks, this sucks, and then quit. So finding yourself a space where people can remind you that you got this, because Kristan and I, as well as being business buddies and stuff, have our moments where like everything sucks, and one of us will message the other one, and it'll be like, it's okay, you're just having your business period, you'll be fine. But having that is so invaluable for whatever transformation, whether it be, releasing weight, starting a business, quitting a corporate job, having a baby, something that doesn't necessarily happen, that the impatient part of us, like when you're pregnant, this is such a great example though. When you're pregnant, you don't know whether today you're creating a foot or an eyeball or a liver. Like your body knows what to do, but conscious you has no idea. You don't panic that this is not working or you're not going to have a baby at the end of the 9 months or whatever. You trust. So having that community to remind you to trust yourself and trust the process, I think is, for me, one of the things that's made me be so successful, because I have, from this iteration where I actually released the weight and kept it off, have always supported myself by, hiring support. Yeah.
Now, you reminded me of something with your pineapple thing, and I have to just reassure people. So this is for those that are on the video. See that little pineapple? That is a pineapple in my garden.
I did not know this. How have you not shown me this before?
And this is actually a couple of weeks ago. So it's grown actually quite notably. So I'll scroll in.
Oh, that is so cool.
That little baby pineapple, and I've just looked at it today, and it's actually grown a bit more since then. But we have had that pineapple plant that it's on for 3 or 4 years, and it's just got a baby pineapple, and it's growing so slowly. We're like, is it any bigger? And so in that picture, it was probably, I don't know, just under 10 centimeters, so 3 inches ish maybe. And I reckon it's just starting to edge towards 4 inches, so 10 centimeters tall now. It's slowly,
You know what's fascinating about pineapples, though? They're not a continuous yield fruit. So once you'll get 2 per plant, and you'll need to uproot it. And I just think that's sometimes, in a journey of transformation, we can do something. We can do some things to release some weight. We can do some things to make some money. And then we can be like, okay, I can set and forget now, or I've done it, so I can kind of go back to my old ways. And then it's like, well, then my results go away. And it makes sense logically, but it's just fascinating that, not everything is a continuous yield.
And we'll grow that little pineapple. I was about to say tomato for some random reason. We will grow that little pineapple into a big juicy pineapple. We will cut the top off, and that will start a future plant for us. And that might take, hopefully now we've got our pineapple mojo happening, we may do it a little bit quicker, But
9 months, I reckon. Once you start, and this is the thing, the beginning is shit. As you said, you planted that 2 to 3 years ago. It's taken so much time, but as long as you continue to yield and do it the same, it's like scobies for kombucha.
Yep.
Like when you start, it's so slow and it takes so long, and then it goes rancid so fast. And it's, oh my God. And then once you get in the momentum, you've got scobies coming out everywhere. Would you like one? Would you like one? And
put it in the compost, feed it to chickens.
It's the 1st of January, people, or depending on when you're listening to this, the beginning of your change. You might be so motivated, so excited, so this, and then, you know, usually it's the 2-week mark. You're like, oh, I'm not magically famous, skinny, fit, married, pregnant, whatever it is yet. So then you give up. But it's like when you know that it's coming, when you trust that what you're doing is going to produce your pineapple or whatever it is, you go about it in such a different way.
Absolutely. And I see this in the minerals game as well, when people suddenly go, oh, I'm going to do all the things, and they change 5 things at once, maybe 10. And then they're feeling amazing because their body's going, oh, I like this. And then 3 or 4 weeks in, it takes just a little bit longer, they'll hit the wall and they'll be like, oh, but this is happening and that is happening. And and it's the same thing. Pare it back, simplify. It's not that this isn't for you. You don't need those minerals or whatever the components and nutrition is that you've changed. Your body is overstimulated. How many times when we've suddenly changed a habit are we overstimulated in some way? Same, different.
Oh, 100%. So I think this is a great point to wrap this episode up, because the minerals thing will be coming in the future. Yes, and I'm happy to be the case study guinea pig for that, because it's been a journey, and so much of this is, there's layers and layers and layers to this. None of this is a once and done, unfortunately. But then again, I don't know if it's necessarily unfortunately, because life would be so boring if everything was instant. Like, we think it'd be exciting, but it's like a kid wanting it to be Christmas every day. And it's like, as an adult, we know the logistics of it being Christmas every day, and we're like, actually, that wouldn't be that exciting after all.
Oh, absolutely. And the cool thing is, what you learn now and that layer right now leads to the next layer and leads to that's actually really exciting, or it can be. How do you want to paint this? Like, we go on this journey and it's not like, oh, there's another layer. It's like, hey, this is cool. What's coming next? And you start to turn that around. I know I've been in the, oh,
not this again. But then again, it's not this again, because it's something new. As you said, when you stick to it, like, I'm so excited for us a year from now to be looking at these podcast episodes that we think are amazing, and I'm sure they are. But a year from now, we'll be like, look how far we've come, and look how, and sticking to it, and how much with anything that you improve over time. Like, every master was once a disaster. Are you willing to suck at something before you get good?
Let's go.
And on that note, I think we'll wrap it up. But just, if you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, like, do a review, recommend it to a friend. We really, really cannot understate how much we appreciate the support. And you could share it on socials, tag us in it. That's how our message reaches more people, and that is really helpful for our brand.
Absolutely. And you can check out information to do with both of us within the show notes, or the area wherever you're listening or viewing this. And that way you can find out how you can work with either of us or learn more.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.
See you later.